The night was full of promise, like most New Year's Eves. The world around was steeped in cold, yet there was warmth inside homes across the neighborhood. Family dinners, glasses clinking in celebration, and the excited buzz of resolutions filled the air. People were ready to usher in a new year, hopeful and expectant. But for some, the night would unfold in ways no one could have anticipated. There are moments in life when things go terribly wrong, and for those caught in those moments, there's only one option: survive. That's exactly what happened on this New Year's Eve, where three families across different settings found themselves battling against unseen dangers. But as fear and danger gripped them, something else began to take shape: resilience, quick thinking, and the unbreakable spirit of family. For one, a young woman was sitting alone in a house meant to keep her safe. For another, a father and daughter would find their lives upended by two strangers. And in a remote farmhouse, a family would fight off three attackers, proving that when people work together, they are far stronger than they realize. Though they were all strangers to one another, the experiences of these families would be bound together by the sheer force of survival, making them question their safety, their trust, and their understanding of the world they thought they knew. In each case, there was a lesson: that evil, when it strikes, does not discriminate. But it's met with courage, heart, and the willingness to fight. The clock ticked, the ball dropped in Times Square, and as the world around them celebrated the beginning of a new year, these families faced their darkest hours yet. Each one would experience something that left them questioning whether they would make it through the night. But as dawn crept in, they all learned that when you fight for what matters, you often get more than just survival. You find strength, unity, and a renewed sense of hope. It was meant to be an easy night. Sarah, a 24-year-old college student, had been asked by a family friend to house-sit for the weekend. The Thompson family had planned a getaway to visit relatives for New Year's, leaving their spacious suburban home under Sarah's watchful eye. The house was quiet, luxurious, and large enough to make Sarah feel a little overwhelmed. At first, Sarah was just glad to be away from her small apartment, enjoying the comfort of a much more elegant home. The walls, adorned with fine art, the plush furniture, and the well-stocked kitchen made it seem like the perfect place for a peaceful night in. Sarah had planned to stay in, curl up with a good book, and let the celebrations go on without her. The family's two golden retrievers, Rufus and Daisy, kept her company as she scrolled through social media, casually sipping her drink. But then, the noises started. It wasn't long after 11 p.m. when Sarah first heard it, the soft but distinct scrape of metal against the door. At first, she thought it might be the wind or perhaps one of the dogs scratching at the door. But then, the sound came again, this time louder. Sarah sat up, heart racing. Her eyes moved to the security monitors the family had set up, live feed from the cameras outside. One of the cameras flickered, then went black. The familiar twinge of dread settled in her stomach. She checked the back patio camera. That one was still working fine. But just as she was about to relax, the feed shifted. A figure appeared, moving quickly across the yard. Instinct kicked in. She quickly grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed the police. "I think someone's trying to break into the house," she whispered urgently into the phone, trying not to alarm the intruder. The operator on the other end assured her help was on the way, but that didn't soothe Sarah. She knew she needed to act quickly. Taking a deep breath, she quietly stood up and crept toward the hallway closet. The family had a safe room, an old panic room in the center of the house. If she could make it there, she could hide and wait for the police. But the hallway was long, and the door to the room was near the main entrance. Just as she reached the door, a noise made her freeze. The back door handle had moved. "Daisy," she whispered, hoping her dog wouldn't bark. But it was too late. Rufus began growling, deep and menacing, and the hairs on Sarah's neck stood on end. She knew she wasn't imagining things. The sound of the door handle turning was real. Frantically, she grabbed her phone again and set it to vibrate before making her way toward the security system. She locked the back door with one press and activated the alarm system. But she wasn't alone. A shadow moved behind the curtain of the front window. Two men, clad in dark clothing, slipped inside the front door, unaware of the silent alarm that had just gone off. Sarah's heart hammered against her chest. She ducked low, crawled behind a sofa, and hoped the men wouldn't see her. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. The burglars split up, searching every room on the lower level. She wasn't sure what gave her the courage, but she suddenly had a plan. Using the security system to her advantage, Sarah activated a small speaker system in the kitchen that emitted a high-pitched alarm when triggered. It sent both men scurrying, their eyes darting back toward the kitchen. Taking her chance, Sarah grabbed the fire extinguisher from under the kitchen counter and made her way to the staircase, where she heard one of the intruders approaching. She swung the extinguisher with all her might, knocking him off balance. The other intruder reached for her, but she kicked him back hard, sending him crashing into a vase. Within moments, the flashing blue lights of a police car lit up the driveway. The burglars had no choice but to flee. One was caught, and the other managed to escape. Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps, but she stood her ground. She'd survived. Jared was used to living in small spaces. The cramped apartment in downtown Chicago was modest but enough for him and his daughter, Tyra. They'd settled there after a difficult few years, moving from place to place, trying to make a better life. Jared, a police officer with a shaky history of long shifts and overtime, found solace in the quiet moments he could spend with his daughter. New Year's Eve came, and Jared decided to spend the night at home. He wasn't interested in the loud parties or chaotic crowds. Instead, he wanted to relax with Tyra. They made dinner together, something simple, a roast chicken with mashed potatoes, and then played some board games while watching the clock tick closer to midnight. But the quiet didn't last long. Around 11:45 p.m., Jared heard something in the hallway. He didn't pay it much attention at first, assuming it was the neighbors coming home. But then the doorbell rang, repeatedly. A chill ran through him. He knew something was wrong. "Stay quiet," Jared whispered to Tyra, his eyes locking with hers. She nodded, fear in her gaze. Jared stood silently and checked through the peephole. He saw two men standing there, their faces hidden by scarves and their eyes scanning the hallway. One of them knocked on the door. His instincts kicked in. He wasn't about to let anyone in. "Go to the bathroom," Jared ordered Tyra, and she obeyed without question, locking the door behind her. Jared stood still, waiting for the burglars to make a move. It wasn't long before he heard the scraping sound of a crowbar against the doorframe. His heart beat faster. It was happening. Jared grabbed the heavy iron skillet he'd been using to cook, his hands shaking. He positioned himself near the door, ready. The door started to creak as the burglars worked their way through. He could hear their muffled voices, too distracted by their task to notice him creeping closer. Finally, the door burst open. Jared swung the skillet with all his might, catching the first man on the side of the head. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. The second man lunged, but Jared was already on him. A fierce struggle followed, and in the scuffle, Tyra managed to dial 911. By the time the police arrived, the burglars were detained. Jared and Tyra were shaken, but they'd fought back, together. They had survived. The Johnson family had always loved their quiet farmhouse in the country. It was a place to escape the chaos of city life, a place where the night sky stretched endlessly, and the only sounds were the winds rustling the leaves. This New Year's Eve was supposed to be special. A dinner with the whole family, a cozy evening of games and laughter. But as midnight approached, the peaceful atmosphere was shattered. Outside, hidden by the trees, three figures moved silently toward the farmhouse. The intruders had been watching for days, waiting for the right moment. The Johnsons were isolated, far from neighbors, making it an easy target. Inside, the family was preparing for their celebration. Maria and James, the parents, were putting finishing touches on their meal. The two teenage siblings, Marcus and Olivia, were setting up the board games. Their young cousin, Jordan, was eagerly waiting for the fireworks. Then, it happened. A loud bang at the back door jolted everyone upright. James looked at his wife, his face pale. "They're here," he whispered. With quick thinking, Maria rushed to lock all the doors while James grabbed the hunting rifle they kept for emergencies. Marcus and Olivia helped barricade the windows with furniture. The house was sturdy, but the intruders weren't backing down. A tense standoff began. The burglars tried to break in, forcing their way through a back window, but they hadn't accounted for the family's quick response. A loud crash echoed through the house as one of the burglars broke through the front door. Olivia screamed, but her father stood firm. He motioned for everyone to stay down. In the chaos, Jordan grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen and flashed it into the eyes of the intruder. The sudden burst of light disoriented him, giving James the perfect opportunity to charge forward, tackling the man to the ground. The other two intruders rushed in, but Marcus and Olivia quickly blocked their path with chairs and anything they could find to use as barricades. "Don't let them in!" James shouted, his voice filled with desperation and determination. The adrenaline was coursing through him, making him feel more powerful than he ever had before. As the burglars struggled to gain control, Maria made a daring move. She crept through the hallway and called the police, whispering into the phone. Her voice trembled, but her resolve remained firm. "We're under attack," she told the operator. "Please hurry." Outside, the attackers were trying to find another way in, but the family had already fortified their position. Every time an intruder tried to break a window, they were met with heavy resistance. Time passed slowly, each minute stretched by the tension in the house. Just when it seemed like the situation might calm down, one of the intruders pulled out a crowbar and began forcing open the back door. But Marcus wasn't about to let them succeed. With swift precision, he grabbed a nearby shovel and swung it at the man's head, knocking him off balance and sending him sprawling into the dirt. The other two intruders tried to retreat, but they were too late. The sound of approaching sirens grew louder, and soon, the intruders realized they were trapped. They made a break for it, but the police arrived just in time to catch them. As the police handcuffed the three men, the Johnson family finally exhaled in relief. The house had been nearly destroyed, but they were alive, and they had protected each other. Despite the terror they'd just endured, they were proud of the strength and courage they had shown. As the clock ticked past midnight, the world celebrated the arrival of a new year. But for Sarah, Jared, and the Johnson family, that night marked something far more profound. It was a night that would forever change their understanding of the world, and of themselves. They had faced fear head-on and survived. The events of that night were a stark reminder that danger could come from the most unexpected places, and no one was immune to its reach. But what truly stood out was the strength they each found within themselves in the face of terror. In the end, it wasn't the locks on their doors or the alarms that kept them safe, it was their courage, their quick thinking, and their fierce will to protect the ones they loved. In the days that followed, Sarah, Jared, and the Johnsons would all reflect on the night they thought would never end. But as they healed, they also gained something invaluable, an unshakable sense of resilience that no break-in could ever take away. For each of them, the new year truly had brought something new, not just survival, but a renewed sense of hope, unity, and the unspoken promise that no matter what came their way, they would face it together. Thank you for tuning in to this chilling story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more spine-tingling tales, and check out the videos appearing on your screen now for more thrilling adventures. Stay safe and